interesting because this is probably about the second or third tapestry I ever wove in the beginning of my sort of professional years. And I know that this was done in about 1965.
That's right.
And the President Hotel was right next door to a flat that my parents had in Connaught Mansions, and we used that flat every so often. And Cecil Skotnes was a friend of ours at that stage because he was involved with the gallery of Egon Gunther, so it evolved like that. And that is how I got the commission to do this particular tapestry. And it was very difficult because I really had a very small loom. I was working in Swaziland, and everything that we did was hand done. The material that we used was mohair, which is hand spun and hand carded up in the mountains in Swaziland. It's all it's dyed with not vegetable dyes, it's dyed with aniline dyes, which are chemical dyes, so it means that we can at least repeat them sometimes. But this particular tapestry was done in 3 sections, and I had a proper Gobelin upright loom, which was just over 2 meters wide. So the threads that came, so the middle section is not much, it was as wide as the loom, and we did it sideways. So we started from the one end and wove that way, which is for big tapestries, is the obvious way to go. And for instance, this middle section, which we wove from that side through to this, you can see the warp threads going this way. The warp threads will be going this way, and the actual weft threads will be going the other way. Once it was finished, we then adjusted the bottom and the top designs to kind of fit that tapestry. It was really one of the biggest tapestries, and I only wove by myself. I didn't have anyone else to help me, so it took a good, I think, 6 or 7 months to weave this tapestry, because one can only do so much, and I had children, and it did go slowly. But it was very prestigious and very exciting at the time. And of course, the President Hotel is no longer there. Yeah. The whole thing was organized with Cecil Skotnes. So Cecil would have discussed it with them, and he would have produced the design, which then came to me, and we did the blow-ups with a group called Ozolid at the time in Johannesburg. And he worked, Cecil worked very closely with me. He really understood that one needed, if he wanted a tapestry to be the way he wanted it to be, he had to do more work than just sitting back and handing it over to me. So he was intrinsically involved in this tapestry. Well, in order to produce this, the actual cartoon for this tapestry, Cecil made a design, which was obviously accepted by the clients. Then he would give this colored blow-up, at least a design to me, and I would blow it up to the full design, to the full size, and start working on it using colors and a color chart with colors on it, numbered colors on it. And that would all have related, those colors were dyed and related exactly to what, to the design that Cecil gave me at the time. And there was no question about it, because there's a lot of natural grays in this, especially in the bottoms and the top. Nothing at the top or the bottom was dyed. Everything was as it came off the goat. It was shaved off the goat, we carded it, we spun it, and first of all, before we'd actually carded it, we put the dark in one section of and the lighter and the lighter and the lighter of the various grays. So those are all quite interesting from my point of view, because you can't get those goats anymore. They only breed white goats because of the Chinese market. So from this point of view, it's invaluable, for me, those colors. It's just, I just dream of them, because I can't get them anymore. So those two were not designed, were not colored at all. So but they were also marked and graded the same way on a chart. The tapestry was unveiled, I think it was 1965. It could have been 1966. Those sort of things, dates, I actually can't absolutely remember, but one could go back and find out. Yeah. It was unveiled, and the exciting part about it was that underneath it was a beautiful box that was carved so it had everything was related. The tapestry was hung very high up. It was a very high ceilinged entrance to the President Hotel, and underneath was this beautiful big carved box in black and all Cecil's colours. It wasn't too coloured up.
Did Cecil also design the box?
It was all designed, carved right across the front and on the top.
Okay.
And it sort of kind of flowed up to the tapestry. The whole thing was designed as a whole, not just as a single tapestry. The first project I did with Cecil was very interesting because it was also from Egon Gunther's gallery. And because we had a flat there, my mother used to go in quite often. I was working as a therapist down in Cape Town. And I'd been trained as a weaver through my occupational therapy training at Wits, from Wits University. And I mean, she saw this beautiful cartoon, or the woodblock of Cecil's, and said she thought it would make a fantastic tapestry. And he said, "You make the tapestry, you make the tapestry, and I'll give you the woodblock." So that was terrific. So she was a weaver, and she had a big studio. So she called me and said, "I've got a job for you in your next vacation." So I said, "Yeah, right, okay." So I wove it, and it was terrific. It really looked wonderful, but the interesting thing was that I wove it I had the cartoon at the back of the warp threads, and I wove it with the back facing me, so that all the threads at the back of the tapestry came out towards me. And I never really saw the tapestry until we unrolled it, put it on the floor, and it was a mirror image. And of course, I absolutely freaked out. I didn't know. I mean, it was such a stupid mistake. But when you're weaving, you're not thinking, you're going, you're weaving, it's a big concentration on a particular thing, and you're dreaming about other things in between. Certainly not that you're going to do the whole thing in reverse. Anyway, the point is that when it came off, Cecil said it was fine, it was perfect, it was just as good as the other way. So it was right. So that was how I started with Cecil. And then I got a lovely commission, which I have a tapestry here to show you if you wanted to see it, for a church at the St. Anne's Church in Pigs Peak, where Eduardo did the Eduardo did the handles of the door, and Cecil carved the Stations of the Cross in this little church up in Pigs Peak. It's an Anglican church. And we made this tapestry of St. Anne, but I'll show you at some stage. Okay.
And then did you work with Cecil subsequently after this big commission?
Many. I worked with Cecil for probably about 10, 15 years, and then ongoing. We did work in the tax office in Cape Town. I did a lot of commissions with Cecil. He was wonderful. We sold well. And we really, it was quite buoyant, and it made us all feel good. This particular, this is the loom that we use for weaving tapestries. It's specifically designed, and it's got very, very strong warp threads under huge tension. And there are about 2,000 threads here on this particular 4 meters 75 is what we can weave normally. That all these threads come down from this top roller, and they come down through its comb, and then half of them come down through these heddles, and the other half go in front of a beam here. So half are in front. Anyway, it's all very complicated, and only weavers will know about it. But when we get the design for this, in this particular case, this is quite an incomplete design by Willem Stradum. We're in the process of doing the whole thing. And the background here is really going to be very dark and interesting with dark colors. Every single piece that's done here, this has been blown up, and then everything is marked so that each and every single area is marked with a color, which is on this chart. Now this is only for the skies that's coming at the back. There'll be another chart for this. There'll be another chart for some of this area and another chart for other areas. And in this particular case, this is the most complicated tapestry we've ever done. Every number relates to another chart which has got 4 or 5 numbers, so each color is twisted. Because Willem, when he's designing, he puts a color down in watercolor, then he puts another color down on top of that after it's dry, and he goes on putting colors down, and each of those colors he chooses on this and mixes them together so that he has a relationship from the bottom to the top of all the colors that he's actually used to get this particular design working. This tapestry is probably going to take us about 2 years to do. It's extremely complicated. We've never had anything as complicated in the studio before, and we're really very excited about seeing it at some stage. I hope you do too. This section here, I'm just lifting up these threads so that it can give you some idea of the detail, and if looking from a distance, you really do think that's a mountain with stones in it. Rhoda here she and Tracy have been seconded to do just, this is all they're ever going to do. And she is following and twisting. You see, I want to show you this has got so many colors in already, and each one is twisted and it weaves a tiny little section. And then the next one will come up. Give me another one, that's this one. This one will come, slightly darker, will come up to do another section. And so you get a ratio, but the concentration to absolutely do this is enormous. And I think, and Willem very much has done this particular design, because I said I just couldn't keep the concentration going for this particular one. I'm fine. It was too much. It was so much his actual design that it was better that he did it himself. I have the same thing with Judy Mason towards the end. Really liked doing her own, putting her own colors in and her own ideas and her own, changing it as she was going. It was another one. I do all Williams, I do all Norman Catherines, I do most of the tapestries, but in this particular case, it's going to be quite an iconic little piece when it comes off.